In another life, it had all played out so differently. I married the brilliant, broken CEO, and my brother, Caleb, married the adopted daughter. He thought he'd played me, certain the quiet girl was his key to the sterling family fortune. He laughed at me, asking what good a wife in a wheelchair could possibly be. He tried every dirty trick in the book to seize control of Sterling Industries and still came up empty-handed. Meanwhile, Victoria, the woman I'd married, began to heal under my care. She didn't just walk again. She soared, taking back her company with a vengeance. Caleb's jealousy curdled into something dark. He poisoned my dinner, and in one bitter moment, extinguished both our lives. When I opened my eyes again, it was today, the day we chose. This time, my brother didn't hesitate. I watched him, a predator sending blood, and then I looked at the adopted daughter, Maya. I took her hand. There was one thing Caleb never understood. You make your own luck. We were both back in the Vance family library, the day of the pact. Just like before, David Sterling had brought his 2 daughters to our family home in Greenwich. Victoria Sterling, the CEO, was a statue of ice in her custom wheelchair, her expression a mask of cool indifference. The adopted daughter, Maya, stood beside her in a simple, off-the-rack dress, her eyes darting around the room, wary as a deer. The 2 women were the same age, yet they were worlds apart. Before my mother could even begin her practice speech, Caleb strode forward and took Victoria's hand. "Mr. Sterling," he announced, his voice ringing with triumph. "I would be honored to marry Victoria." Victoria glanced at him, her face unreadable, but her eyes flickered to me for a fraction of a second before returning to their neutral stare. Caleb shot me a smirk, dripping with condescension. "Well, Ethan, looks like I chose first this time. Sterling Industries, all of it will be mine. You have fun with the charity case. Enjoy living paycheck to paycheck under my thumb." Maya flinched at the venom in his voice. She looked at him, then quickly dropped her gaze to the floor, silent. I stepped forward and took her hand. It was trembling. "The race isn't over yet," I said, my voice low and steady. "We could both be dark horses." Mr. Sterling and my mother, Eleanor, exchanged smiles, but I saw a flicker of surprise in their eyes as they looked at me. As I led Maya toward the solarium, I overheard their conversation. "Eleanor, are you really going to let Ethan go through with this?" David Sterling's voice was laced with concern. "Choosing Maya? She's a sweet girl, but she seems fragile." My mother's reply was noncommittal. "It's his choice to make. Adults have to be responsible for their own decisions." Caleb scoffed. "Why are you even worried about him, Mr. Sterling? If anything, my brother is doing you a favor, taking her off your hands. After all the years she's freeloaded in your house, you've more than fulfilled your obligation to her." Hearing Caleb's smug laughter, a cold smile touched my own lips. He had no idea. He thought marrying the CEO in the wheelchair was his golden ticket. In reality, he just stepped off a cliff. A shiver went down my spine as I remembered the things Victoria had done to me in that other life. Maya must have sensed my unease. She squeezed my hand. "Don't worry, Ethan," she whispered. "I'm here with you." I looked down at her, this small, fierce girl, and couldn't help but smile, gently tilting her chin up. "You'd better protect me, then, Angel." Maya laughed, and for a moment, the whole world stopped. The union between the Sterlings and the Vances was born from tragedy. My father had died saving David and his wife in a car crash years ago, and the Sterling family's debt of gratitude was absolute. 2 Sterling daughters, 2 Vance sons. The families had hoped for one match to seal the alliance. They were getting 2. David Sterling had been clear. Whichever daughter proved more capable would inherit the entirety of Sterling Industries. But everyone with eyes knew the empire was destined for Victoria. That's why Caleb had been so desperate to claim her, and his choice played right into my hands. I remembered it clearly from the last time. He chose first then, too. I could guess why. Caleb had gone to our mother beforehand, securing her blessing, which was why my father hadn't intervened. Mom always had a soft spot for Caleb. He knew how to flatter her, telling jokes and fawning over her until she was giddy with laughter. I was different. I showed up when she needed me, but I didn't play the games. Looking back, I could see why she never warmed to me. Even Mr. Sterling wanted Victoria to marry Caleb. It made sense on paper. Sterling had the capital, Vance had the tech. A powerhouse merger. A win-win. In our first life, Caleb had chosen Maya and taunted me. "What are you going to do with a cripple?" he'd sneered. "Sure, she's got a pretty face, but what good is it? She can't do anything but sit there and eat." He'd assumed Victoria's paralysis was permanent. He thought Maya would be his rocket to the top, but his constant abuse and criticism ground her down until she was a shell of herself. She tried to launch a few startups, but he sabotaged every single one. The final straw was when he followed her to a networking event, saw her shaking hands with a male colleague, and beat her so badly she almost died. After that, Maya became a recluse. With no income, and Caleb's lazy, entitled nature, their life imploded into a storm of domestic violence and a bitter divorce. After that scandal, my mother refused to give Caleb control of the Vance family's tech portfolio. She gave it to me, and under my care, Victoria didn't just recover, she staged a miracle. With her sharp mind, she quickly reclaimed her throne at Sterling Industries. We were married, had a daughter, and were on top of the world. At the lavish party to celebrate it all, a seething Caleb pulled me aside for a talk. He had dosed my wine. One sip, 2 lives gone. Why, Ethan? He'd whispered as the world went dark. Why do you always have to take what's mine? Oh, and by the way, if I can't have it, no one can. Let's go to hell together. I didn't hear the rest. I was already dead. I bet you didn't expect me to be reborn too. Did you, brother? Caleb's voice from earlier echoed in my mind. A little life swap. The CEO is mine this time. You can have the worthless coward. Let's see how you like being tortured by her. I said nothing. One day, that's all it took for trouble to find Maya. I walked into the lobby of the office building where she worked and saw her surrounded by a crowd. As I pushed my way through, my blood ran cold. Maya's cheek was bruised and swelling. The woman she'd apparently been fighting with looked like a disheveled mess, her designer blouse torn. And clutched tightly in Maya's hand, the cause of the whole mess was a photograph. The first one we'd taken together, just yesterday. I couldn't believe she'd already had it printed. The other woman saw me and started shouting, "You're going to pay for this. For my clothes, for my distress." I pulled Maya behind me, my voice low as I gently touched her cheek. Did she start it? And did you win? Maya stared at me, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and curiosity. I won. She started it. She seemed unsure which question to answer first. That was all I needed. I turned to the other woman. You heard her. You threw the first punch. That makes our actions self-defense. At most, we'll apologize when the police get here. My words silenced the murmuring crowd. Apologize? The woman shrieked. How about I knock out 2 of your teeth, and then I'll apologize? Like her, like you. Who the hell does she think she is, putting her hands on me? Do you know who my father is? I'll have him fire you both by lunch. Maya tugged on my sleeve, her voice a faint whisper. Ethan, let's just drop it. Her dad is a VP here. I could just say I'm sorry. I'll wave her off. A VP? So what? Is he above the law? Just then, Caleb appeared, pushing Victoria's wheelchair. They stopped to watch the show. See, Ethan, Caleb gloated. Look at the kind of trouble you married. And this is just the beginning. You have no idea what you're in for. He started to push Victoria away. Come on, honey. Let's get you to physical therapy. The sooner you're back on your feet, the sooner you'll have full control of the family fortune. Don't watch this train wreck. Victoria glanced up at Caleb, her voice as cold as ice. Let's go. I ignored them and stepped toward the snarling woman. Your dad isn't firing us, I said, my voice bored. We're firing him. We quit. The woman, sputtering with rage, actually called the police. But when they arrived and reviewed the security footage, they just told everyone to go home. In front of the officers, the woman was forced to mumble an apology. As she left, she shot me a look that could kill. I didn't give her a second thought. I took Maya's hand and led her in my car. As she realized I was driving toward a clinic, she seemed to relax. She watched me in the rearview mirror. Ethan, she began timidly, aren't you angry about what happened today? I pulled over to the curb, turned in my seat, and looked at her. You're my wife, I said softly. It's my job to take care of you. Why would I ever blame you? The wound was superficial. After the clinic disinfected and bandaged her cheek, we were free to go. The entire time, Maya clung to me like a koala, her head buried in my chest. She was so disarmingly sweet, I just let her. It's getting late. I should probably get home, or else. Or else what? I smiled. Don't worry. I already cleared it with Mr. Sterling. After this, I'm taking you to dinner. Her stomach rumbled on cue. She ducked her head, embarrassed. I'm not hungry. My stomach is. I took her to the best restaurant in the city and ordered a feast. Tasting menu of over a dozen small plates. Maya's eyes widened. This is everything I love. How did you know? Do we have the exact same taste? My heart skipped a beat. A mistake. In all the years of our family's association, our contact had been limited to holiday visits. This was a slip-up. Not exactly, I said, recovering quickly, but it's the kind of food most girls like, right? She didn't seem to suspect anything. She just looked at me, a new kind of intensity in her gaze that made me nervous. I haven't eaten like this in a very long time, she said quietly. And thank you. For today. I grinned. If you like it, eat up. And don't thank me for today. That mess was my fault more than anyone's. The job doesn't matter. I have a surprise for you. I'll tell you in 3 days. Her eyes lit up, scanning me as if she could find a clue hidden in my clothes. I roll my eyes playfully. Eat your food. Don't get ahead of yourself. But I'm so curious. If you don't tell me, I don't know if I can even finish this meal. I sighed in mock defeat. Fine. I'll give you a hint. It's about your career. She immediately picked up her fork and began eating with gusto, a joyful smile she couldn't hide playing on her lips. I watched the way she ate, a smear of sauce on her chin. Without thinking, I reached across the table with a napkin and wiped it away. She looked up, startled, and as she did, our lips brushed. Her face instantly turned crimson. I'm sorry. It reminded me of Caleb, calling her a worthless coward. Seeing her so flustered, I softened my voice. We're husband and wife, just without the paperwork. You did nothing wrong. You don't have to apologize. And even if you did do something wrong, I'd forgive you. I'm not the kind of man who hurts his wife. Only weak men do that. Tears welled in her eyes. She leaned across the table and threw her arms around my neck. Ethan, husband, can we get the license tomorrow? She understood now. I was the one who would always be on her side. I stroked her hair. One good meal was all it took to win you over, huh? She wiped her tears, her voice thick with emotion. I'd do it for free. Looking at her, my heart ached with a fierce, protective love. I had made my decision. This life, I would keep her safe. A day later, Maya and I were legally married. 3 days later, I took her to a sleek, modern office building downtown. I handed her a portfolio tied with a silk ribbon. Open it, I said. With trembling hands, she untied the ribbon and opened the cover. Inside was the deed to the entire building. The purchase was funded by the sale of my Vance Tech shares, the inheritance from my father. And the buyer, ironically, was Caleb. The name on the deed was hers, Maya Sterling Vance. This is, for me, she whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. I ruffled her hair. Remember I said I had a surprise? This is it. Do you like it? Tears streamed down her face, and it felt like a knife in my heart. Husband, she choked out. Thank you. She still had that bad habit of crying when she was happy. So I kissed her. That's your punishment, I murmured against her lips. I like it, she whispered back, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Can you punish me again? I felt like I'd been caught in my own trap. Seeing my flustered expression, she broke into a genuine, radiant smile. Just as I was leaning in again, a grating voice shattered the moment. Well, if it isn't my big brother and my dear sister-in-law. Are you here to congratulate me on my new company? I turned. It was Caleb, but he looked like he'd been through a war. There were faint, thin scars on his face and hairline, the kind a whip might make, barely concealed by makeup. I almost laughed out loud. Caleb thought marrying Victoria would give him the keys to the kingdom. So he'd started pushing her, forcing her into brutally intensive physical therapy sessions, trying to rush her recovery. It had backfired spectacularly, worsening her condition. As punishment, Victoria had apparently locked him in their basement for a full day, subjecting him to God knows what. I knew firsthand what she was capable of. Don't look so smug, Ethan, he snarled. Once Victoria is back on her feet and running Sterling Industries, she'll kick Maya to the curb. And you think this is over? Look at this building. I just bought it. I'm starting a cosmetics company. He was practically preening. I felt a headache coming on. He was trying to steal Maya's brilliant idea from our past life. I stepped toward him. Caleb, what do you know about cosmetics? It's a cutthroat business. He jerked away from me. Are you worried about me? Fine. Let Maya come work for me. I'll make her head of product development. I'm sure her talents would be put to good use. The way he was looking at her made my stomach turn. I held up my hands in surrender. I've said my piece. Do what you want. After Caleb left, he doubled down, pushing Victoria even harder in her physical therapy, desperate for her to walk again. And, to his shock, she started showing signs of improvement. Caleb became the golden boy of both families, swaggering around like he'd already won. But I knew better. Improvement? It was a dead cat bounce. The last rally before the fall. Still, she was the woman I'd spent years with in another life. The mother of my daughter. Even without that bond in this timeline, I couldn't stand to see her confined to that chair forever. It would only benefit Caleb. And the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I went to see Victoria. She wasn't surprised to see me. I didn't ask why. I just took a folded piece of paper from my pocket, a copy of an old, obscure treatment plan. This is a prescription and a physical therapy regimen, I said, handing it to her. But remember one thing, too much of anything is a bad thing. She took it without looking at it, her eyes fixed on my face. You're in love with me, she stated, not questioned. Why didn't you choose me? If you had, I would have said yes. It's not too late, you know. Divorce Maya, and I'll be with you. I was stunned. Her words could only mean one of two things. Either her arrangement with Caleb was already falling apart, or she was already looking for his replacement. Either way, it wasn't my problem. "You got it all wrong," I said coolly. "I came across an old family remedy and thought it might help. You're my sister-in-law now, after all. Don't misunderstand. I love Maya, and I won't stand for you bullying her." As I turned to leave, her face hardened into a cold mask. She reached for the paper, which had fallen to the floor, and in doing so, lost her balance. The entire wheelchair tipped, sending her crashing to the ground. She clutched the paper in her fist, her voice a low whisper that I couldn't hear. "Ethan Vance, you won't escape my grasp." Carefully, she smoothed out the paper, then picked up her phone and called her assistant. After giving a series of curt instructions, she looked out the window. I was just getting into my car. I had the strangest feeling I was being watched. I glanced back at the house several times, but saw nothing. With his new company to obsess over, Caleb was barely home. He poured all his energy into developing his cosmetics line and registering trademarks. He had no idea he was an amateur playing in the big leagues. Even with his memories from our past life, the technology and chemistry of the industry had evolved. He was out of his depth. Maya, on the other hand, was a natural. I handled the business side of our new venture, and she was the genius in the lab. In our last life, Caleb had crushed her spirit before she could truly fly. This time was different. "Thirsty?" I asked, handing Maya a bottle of water as she emerged from the lab and began kneading her tense shoulders. She had gone from being shyly resistant to my affection to accepting it as her due. "It all comes down to the next month," she said, tilting her head back to look at me. She leaned up and planted a soft kiss on my cheek. Through the window, Caleb saw it all. He had come looking for Maya, probably to try and poach her again. "Maya, you bitch," he roared. "Kissing in public. Ain't no shame." I turned slowly and gave him a lazy, mocking smile. Maya, startled by his voice, shrank back into my arms. "Ethan, get the hell out here." Caleb's shouting attracted a crowd of our employees. "What's going on? Why is that Caleb Vance guy always hanging around here? Isn't it obvious? His own cosmetics line is probably tanking, and he wants to steal our boss. Fat chance of that. Who would choose to be a lackey when you could be the owner?" Their words made Caleb's face contort with rage. I knew I had to end this before he completely disgraced both our families. I told Maya to stay inside and went out to meet my dear brother. He had 2 coffees. I didn't touch mine. He wasn't surprised. We both knew the score. We were both back. There was no point in pretending. "Ethan, let me borrow her," he said, getting straight to the point. "Name your price." His words sent a chill down my spine, a phantom echo of the past. After Victoria and I married, he had become obsessed, constantly trying to undermine me, telling me he regretted his choice and that I should give her to him. It was laughable. What did he think marriage was? A game of musical chairs? He had made his choice twice, and when that didn't work, he waited until my guard was down, right before the celebration for our daughter's birth, and he struck. This time, I was watching him like a hawk. Every move he made, every word he said. He was the same conniving snake he'd always been. All I had to do was wait for him to make a mistake, and then I would crush him. Since the gloves were already off, there was no need to be polite. "Impossible," I said flatly. "We're competitors. I would never lend you my best asset." But something was off. Normally, when Caleb didn't get his way with me, he'd run to our mother, who would then pressure me on his behalf. This time he was calm. He had another card to play. When I told Maya my suspicions, she was incredulous. "You think we have a mole in the company?" "Who?" I leaned in and whispered a plan in her ear. "Let's find out. And if I'm right, tonight you're on top." She blushed and playfully smacked my chest. "You're impossible." But her expression turned serious. She planted a fake formula in the lab's main computer, while keeping the real data on a secure, offline drive. A few days later, during a tense family dinner to discuss mine and Maya's upcoming wedding reception, her phone buzzed with an alert. Someone had accessed the lab. The mole was her own personal assistant, Jenna. Maya tugged my sleeve. I excused us from the table, and we went to my study. On the security monitor, we watched in crystal clear HD as Jenna walked straight to the lab, used her key card to open the safe, and downloaded the fake formula onto a flash drive. The whole thing took less than 2 minutes. Maya's face was a mask of cold fury. It was premeditated. How could she? I was good to her. I knew her family was struggling, so I gave her a position of trust out of pity. I put a comforting hand on her arm. "This is a lesson, Maya. You have to be more careful. Business is about profit, not pity." She pouted a little in my lecture. "What about you?" I wrapped my arm around her waist. "What about me? I'm your 24/7 concierge, bodyguard, and masseuse. What more do you want?" She stuck her tongue out at me. "Shameless. Then her tone shifted. What are we going to do about Jenna? I sighed. You're the CEO. It's your call. But my advice? Call the police. Just because she's in a tough spot doesn't give her a pass to break the law. I saw the hesitation in her eyes. I had a long way to go in teaching her to be ruthless. We returned to the dining room just as Caleb burst in, beaming. He saw us and shot us a contemptuous look. With our technology in his grasp, his company, Ascend Cosmetics, was about to set sail. He strode over to our parents. Mom, Dad, Mr. Sterling, my company has just developed a revolutionary new product. It's completely natural and 3 times more effective than anything on the market. I'll be sure to save you all. 10 sets each. Our parents showered him with praise, promising to attend his launch event. My mother was ecstatic. Son, whatever you need, you tell me. The money is yours. Maya was trying so hard not to laugh that she was shaking. I poked her in the ribs. Ha ha ha. The laugh burst out of her. Every head turned. She dug her fingernails into my side, so hard I saw stars. She's just so happy for Caleb, I said quickly, covering for her. She was just telling me we need to get him a congratulatory gift. The mood relaxed, but Caleb continued to glare at Maya. Before he could say anything, our parents steered the conversation back to the wedding plans. I caught Maya's eye. The look she gave me said it all. I was going to pay for that tonight. A month later, Ascend Cosmetics held its massive product launch event. Mr. Sterling and our mother were there in the front row. Even Victoria made an appearance, but when she saw that Maya and I weren't there, she turned around and left without a word, leaving Caleb humiliated in front of the press. He stood on the stage, hyping his new product, a product that had undergone 0 clinical trials. He thought that by beating us to market, he could corner it. Brotherly love never entered the equation. The media blitz worked. The product sold out, breaking 10 million in sales on the first day. Caleb lorded it over everyone at home, even sending a few sets to Maya to rub it in. The victory was short-lived. Reports started flooding in from the first batch of customers. Rashes, chemical burns, swelling. Caleb threw money at the problem, trying to kill the stories, hiring online trolls to flood social media with celebrity gossip to change the subject. But then a major news outlet ran an official investigation. The tide turned overnight. He went from being a startup wunderkind to a purveyor of poison. The Sterling family immediately distanced themselves, issuing a statement that Victoria had been deceived. David Sterling and his wife came to our house to formally break the engagement. My mother was distraught. For the first time, she looked at Caleb with cold fury. He had not only squandered a fortune on the initial investment, but had also dragged the Vance family name through the mud and exposed us to massive liability lawsuits. No one had anticipated Caleb's strategy, a massive, pre-launch flash sale he called Frenzy Friday, an idea he'd clearly stolen from another life. He'd sold millions of units before the official launch, and now, only a fraction of them could be recalled. Caleb stood in the living room, head bowed, silent. I stood with Maya, saying nothing. He had brought this entirely on himself. Our house was under siege. Reporters camped out on the lawn, and a crowd of angry victims chanted on the street. My mother pointed a shaking finger at Caleb. What is going on? Caleb looked at me. For a second, I thought he was going to confess. Instead, his next words were staggering. Mom, it was Ethan. He set me up. My mother's head snapped toward me, her eyes filled with suspicion. Before I could speak, Maya stepped in front of me. You've protected me so many times, she whispered. Let me protect you for once. She turned to my mother. Eleanor, here's what happened. Caleb sent a spy to my company to steal a formula. He took it and rushed it into production without any testing. It's my fault, really. I should have had better security. So you knew? Caleb lunged forward. You knew, and you didn't stop me? You did this on purpose. I blocked his path. Now, hold on a minute, little brother, I said, my voice dangerously calm. Did we tell you to commit corporate espionage? Did we force you to sell a dangerous, untested product to the public? No. This was your greed, and now you're trying to blame us. At the word blame, Caleb's bravado finally shattered. He grabbed my arm and felt his knees. Brother, don't say any more. It was all my fault, he sobbed. I never should have gotten into this business. I saw how much money there was, and I wanted to provide a better life for our mother. I'll take responsibility for my mistakes. It was a masterful performance, painting himself as a well-intentioned son who had simply made a mistake for the good of the family. I watched him cry, his body racked with fake sobs. He was trying to use our mother to pressure me into fixing his mess. In a last life, I might have. This time, I was happy to kick him while he was down. Because those reporters outside, I called them. To truly defeat Caleb, I had to take down his biggest supporter, our mother. The reporters, true professionals, earned their pay. Within minutes, Caleb Vance and Ascend Cosmetics were trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. The entire internet was calling for his head. His grand plan to steal Maya's success had ended in utter ruin. My mother, however, couldn't bear the thought of her favorite son going to jail. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Ethan, help your brother." I pretended to think for a long moment. "Mom, it's not that I don't want to help. It's that I can't. This isn't about money anymore. This is about placating thousands of angry victims." "What do you want to do?" she asked, a hint of suspicion in her voice. She was starting to realize she'd walked in my trap, but it was too late. The storm of negative press was now washing over both the Vance and Sterling names. That was also my doing. I had to cut off all their escape routes. It would mean sacrificing Caleb's reputation. I let the words hang in the air. My mother looked at the chaos outside, at the incessantly ringing phones. She slammed her hand on the table. "Do it. First, Caleb needs to record a video apology and post it everywhere. Then, if I do that, I'll never be able to do business again." Caleb interrupted. My mother shot up from her chair and slapped him hard across the face. "You should have thought of the consequences before you did something so despicable." "Continue, Ethan." Then, I went on, "He needs to go outside and kneel before the victims. He has to promise them full compensation, if he shows enough sincerity." Caleb flew at me, his hands closing around my throat. "Ethan, I see it now. You're trying to destroy me." Crack. The sound of another slap echoed through the room. This time it was Mr. Sterling. "Caleb Vance," he said, his voice dripping with disgust. "I never realized what a spineless coward you are. I was blind to ever let you near my daughter." My mother's face darkened. Though this crisis was affecting the Sterlings too, for David to discipline her son in her own home was a direct challenge to her authority. Caleb glared at Maya and me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish, but no words came out. "Caleb," my mother said, her voice like steel, "if you say one more word, you can get out of this house and never come back." Her words, the ultimate threat, shattered his last hope. He did as I said. He recorded the humiliating video. Then he walked outside and knelt on the lawn, letting the victims pelt him with eggs and rotten vegetables. His future was over. The only person left in his corner was Victoria. He became a hollowed-out version of himself, kneeling on the grass like a dead man. Eventually, seeing his public penance and the promise of compensation, the crowd dispersed. Then, Victoria appeared. She had her assistants drag the pathetic, filth-covered Caleb to his feet. He looked at her like she was his last hope. "Victoria, save me. I'll do anything you say. I'll be your dog. Just one thing. Help me get my revenge." He pointed a trembling finger at me. "Help me destroy him, and I'll tell you a secret." He was about to spill everything. I knew what he was going to say. "Ethan, are you going to stand there and play the hero again?" he shrieked. "This is all your fault. You pretend you're doing what's best for our families, but all you want is to isolate me. You're afraid of me, aren't you?" He lunged for me, but I sidestepped him easily. He wasn't wrong. "Afraid of you, Caleb?" I said calmly. "If it weren't for me, you'd have been torn apart by that mob. Why on earth would I be afraid of you?" I took Maya's hand and walked away. As we left, I burst into laughter. Half the debt from my last life was now paid. Just then my phone buzzed. A text message. "Ethan, Caleb may be beaten, but our game is just beginning." It was signed with 2 words, Victoria Sterling. A chill ran down my spine. Victoria was infinitely more dangerous than Caleb. Her defining trait was a pathological need to control everything and everyone, especially the men in her life. In our last life, I had been her prisoner, my only escape the miracle of her recovery. And judging by the way she'd moved earlier, she was already getting stronger. I wanted to slap myself for ever giving her that treatment plan. I warned Maya to be wary of her sister. I warned her to be wary of Caleb, that venomous snake. The fear of my last life's end repeating itself was a constant, gnawing presence. I hired 4 full-time bodyguards for Maya and me. Our cosmetics company was thriving, but enemies were circling. Victoria had taken over the empty shell of Caleb's company, rebranded it, and launched a competing cosmetics line. The pressure from her was 1,000 times greater than Caleb's had ever been. To my surprise, Maya was eager for the fight. She launched our first flagship product, Aura. Victoria immediately followed with her own, Glacier. They went head-to-head, even scheduling their launch events for the same day. I tried to broker a truce, suggesting we could all make more money by cooperating, but Victoria refused. Instead, she made an outrageous demand, a public showdown. At the joint launch event, Victoria proposed a live, on-stage comparison. 10 audience members would be chosen at random to try both products, and then a panel of 20 judges would vote. To my astonishment, Maya agreed without a moment's hesitation. I discreetly checked the audience members. Victoria hadn't stacked the deck. The outcome was anyone's guess. Victoria had clearly been preparing for this for a long time. But Maya, she was possessed by a new, fierce confidence. The plot of our lives had veered so far off course that even I couldn't predict the next turn. This was her fight, but I had faith in her. This time I was wrong. Victoria won in a landslide, 19-1. Just as the host was about to announce the official result, Caleb appeared. He walked with a slight limp, the swagger gone, replaced by a desperate intensity. "Honey, you're having a launch party and you didn't tell me," he said, rushing to Victoria's side. "I knew you'd win. Now all we have to do is crush Maya, and both families' fortunes will be in our hands." "Who said anything about crushing Maya?" Victoria cut him off, her voice ringing through the auditorium. "As of today, both Aura and Glacier will be released as sister products. Our two companies are merging." Caleb stared at her, dumbfounded. "Victoria, what are you talking about? Why? If you crush Aura now, Glacier will own the entire market. This is a stupid move. I'm going to tell your father about this." "And who do you think you are?" A deep voice boomed from the side of the stage. "To interfere in my family's business?" "Mister." Sterling walked up to me and clapped me on the shoulder. "Maya has good taste. You're a good man, Ethan. As for you, Caleb, you're a lost cause. A disappointment. All you see is money. You have no loyalty, no honor. It's a good thing your mother didn't hand you the keys to the family business, or you'd have bankrupted the Van Cess just like you did your own company." Caleb's face was a thundercloud of rage. I saw a flash of pure murder in his eyes before he masked it. "You're right, sir," he said through gritted teeth. "I was wrong." Soon after the merger, two massive international cosmetic conglomerates tried to force their way into the domestic market. Victoria and Maya, seemingly prepared for this, joined forces. They didn't just fend off the attack. They dominated, carving out a huge new market share. For the first time, a domestic brand had beaten the foreign giants. The news was everywhere. The only one not celebrating was Caleb. His plans had been thwarted once again. And it wasn't long before the Sterling family's investigators traced the foreign company's hostile takeover attempt back to him. So he made a decision so monstrous it defied belief. Unable to get to me or Maya, he kidnapped our mother. The news hit me like a physical blow. I didn't hesitate. I called the police. Then, just as Caleb's text demanded, I went alone to the designated spot on the old shipping pier, a signed portfolio of stock transfer agreements in my hand. He had her tied to a piling at the edge of the pier, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and despair. She was pleading with him, but he'd already gone too far down his dark path. Annoyed by her words, he stuffed a gag in her mouth. I saw the scene and started to run forward. Maya, who had followed me against my orders, grabbed my arm. "Ethan, be smart. He has a knife." Caleb turned to me, his face a twisted mask. "Ethan, why'd you have to take everything from me? In the last life, and now in this one. You might as well just die with me again." My heart was hammering against my ribs. My mother couldn't swim. If she fell in, she'd be gone in seconds. I had to play along. I cursed my own carelessness. I never imagined he would go after his own mother. But this was all the result of his own choices. He chose Maya, then he chose Victoria. He got his wish both times, and his greed still consumed him. I slid the portfolio across the wet wood. Caleb checked the documents. Satisfied, he looked up at me with a sick smile. "Just one last thing, big brother. You jump from here, and I'll let Mama Maya go. Deal?" Maya's voice was tight with rage. "In your dreams. Don't trust him, Ethan." I held her gaze, my voice a low whisper only she could hear. "It's okay, honey. I'm prepared." I walked toward the edge. As I drew near, Caleb lunged, trying to kick me into the dark water. I was ready. I twisted, grabbing him and pulling him with me as we plunged into the icy depths. I was reaching for the small emergency breathing device in my pocket when he slapped it out of my hand. He laughed, a gurgling, insane sound. "Ethan, do you think we'll be reborn again after this? If we are, I'm taking both Victoria and Maya next time. Let's see you come back from that." He was completely mad. Darkness. I woke up in a sterile white room, feeling drained, hollowed out. Maya was asleep in a chair by my bed. "Honey," I rasped. "What happened?" She started, her eyes flying open. She grabbed my hand. "You and Caleb were in the water. You were both in a coma for 3 days. You just woke up. Something fell off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. A few days later, I was discharged. Caleb had also survived, but he was immediately taken into police custody. This time, even our mother didn't speak up for him. He would likely spend the rest of his life in prison. He'd earned it. Soon after, Maya and I held our wedding. The one person missing was Victoria. I wasn't disappointed. The company, under Maya's leadership, grew into an empire and eventually went public. A year later, we had a daughter. At my mother's insistence, I finally took the reins of the Vance family business. And Sterling Industries, of course, was now in the hands of my wife. One day, I overheard Maya on the phone with another woman, laughing with a genuine, easy joy I'd rarely heard. Curious, I crept closer. "Honey," she said, without turning around. "It's rude to eavesdrop." 20 years later, Caleb was released from prison. The first thing he did was find me. He fell to his knees. "It doesn't matter," he said, his voice a broken whisper. "No matter how many times we switch lives, I'll never be a match for you."